Deshaun Watson's media availability showed a different side of Watson. Obviously, a lot of talk and speculation over Watson's play during the week down in Philly, of course, where his rankings are considered. And Deshaun opened up about all of that today with the media. We got some other stuff to cover as well. Your latest Locked On Browns starts now.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends, your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound LGB on the LOB, the Locked On Browns podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Your host, Jeff Lloyd, at Jeff_LJ_Lloyd. Been here now 7 seasons with you all, covering the Cleveland Browns here. Seen some good, seen some bad, certainly hoping for the best of times here in 2023. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. And of course, as always, join the everyday crowd by subscribing to Locked On Browns YouTube channel. The show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Deshaun Watson we'll get to in segment 2. We've been doing basically the news of the day here for the last couple of days, and I want to keep that going. Browns started off practice outside today. A little lightning struck, and just like when you were in high school, you know, the old drill, clear the fields. So the Browns ran inside for practice. First things first, until the Browns get to their final cutdowns, there are just way too many people in that building. Now, you keep in mind, practice fields are about 80 yards long. The Browns still have the weight room equipment in that same practice area. So that's subtracting some of the amount from the field as well. So it's really, really crowded in there. There was a play where running back got pushed out of bounds. Stump Mitchell got dumped on his can. Stump was okay, though. But it's really, really difficult. And, credit to the reporters there in the building, because there's not a lot of room. So for these, folks, guys and gals, to get you, the footage that they're putting out a lot of effort. So, Cam Justice, of course, all the people from Cleveland.com, Mary Kay, Fred Greetham, all these people out there getting you coverage in a situation like this, hats off to you, because it's a lot tougher to get things done when it's one field and about basically, 120 Cleveland Browns personnel on the field. So really, really good job by everybody there within the building. Grant Delpit. For Grant Delpit, from the looks of the hit and the way he went down, my first reaction and belief is probably stinger. You don't feel it initially. It's like a split second later, and then all of a sudden the tingling basically goes all the way down. I don't think Grant necessarily saw the contact coming or didn't have his body in the correct angle. Bumps into the wide receiver. He's down for about 2 minutes. They took him out. Took him back to the trainer's room. My belief is probably stinger. It's not a fun thing. It's a football. Anybody ever probably played a good amount of football, you've probably gotten one of those hits somehow, some way, and just basically everything kind of goes numb. You definitely get like a pinched nerve type of thing. And whether or not this pulls Grant Delpit out of playing Saturday against Kansas City Chiefs, I'd love for Grant Delpit to get out there, basically whet the appetite, get himself ready for week 1. But September 10th against Cincinnati Bengals means a hell of a lot more than any game on August 26th against Kansas City Chiefs. So if it means he's a no-go for the Chiefs, it means he's a no-go. Look, Grant in his 4th year here not necessarily needs one more taste of preseason action. And the Browns, again, as always, are very, very cautious in these type of aspects. They're cautious about the stuff in the regular season. Imagine what they're going to feel about a guy who's going to be a starter in the regular season, about what they feel about the preseason. So Grant Delpit probably maybe not going to be able to, make it on the field against the Kansas City Chiefs. Browns worked out a running back today. Former 7th-round pick in 2021 of the Green Bay Packers, out of Mississippi State, Keelan Hill, was a collegiate teammate of Martin Emerson. Athletically, didn't test that great. He ran a 4.57, which is good enough to get the job done in the NFL. Certainly, I'm not questioning all that. While at Mississippi State, had a prowess as a receiver, believe it or not. Had 88-yard touchdown reception, 76-yard reception. His sophomore year, his 2019 season at Mississippi State, ran for over 1,300 yards. Played as a true freshman at Mississippi State. The Browns are still invested into this running back market. And we're going to get to segment 3 here because it was a great article from Browns Wire today from Corey Kinnan about some names to look for here. And we're going to highlight that in segment 3 here today. But here's the thing. And yes, Jerome Ford's not here. We understand that. And Jerome Ford is still not practicing. We're not going to hear anything on Jerome Ford again until next week. And the Browns, when you say hopeful for week 1, all right, well, when eventually is hopeful, nothing means anything until we see him on a practice field, because then maybe you can start setting maybe an ideal clock of when you think he's going to be back. And here's the thing, it's not so much about Jerome Ford. The Cleveland Browns, God forbid, are one play away from Jordan Wilkins as your number 1 running back, Demetric Felton as your number 1 running back, Kelly, Hassan Hall. I mean, that's the reality of the Browns running back position. And people, are we going to see Nick on Saturday? My assumption is 100% not. You're going to see Nick Chubb on Saturday. He is so consequential to this team. He is so integral to the success of this team and this team as they transition to a more of a passing offense. You're going to get an opportunity where teams are not necessarily going to be keen on Nick Chubb the way they have in the past. And that should hopefully make Nick Chubb's life even easier. Also means is maybe you can bring that carry count down a little bit on Nick Chubb and try to preserve him through a 17-game season. And obviously, what the Browns feel is going to be a longer stretch as they go from hopefully, as they go through January, hopefully, God willing, even into February. So still very interested, very active in the running back market or the Browns. Jakeem Grant, we got the word today. Jakeem Grant is going to play Saturday, and and I brought this up last week, and when it was announced that he was not going to play in the 3rd preseason game, it was the guy hadn't played football now in almost 2 competitive years. He hasn't taken a live snap. You got to remember when he was with the Browns, it was really early in camp. It was way before preseason games started that Jakeem Grant went down. So if you're going to have this guy that can kind of maybe be the Elijah Moore light, God forbid something happened to Elijah, and the way you look at it right now, he is most likely your kick returner week 1 minimum. I'm not sure if the Browns want Donovan Peoples-Jones returning punts this year. Donovan Peoples-Jones, I'm not sure if he wants to be returning punts this year, as he is in this, waiting hopefully for either a contract extension from the Cleveland Browns or to build up his, statistical output. So when he does hit free agency, there is a real good opportunity for Donovan Peoples-Jones to land a nice contract for himself. So you got to believe that Jakeem Grant, and here we are 1 year later after all this, and then going through all of this in the offseason and going through OTAs and going through training camp, and all of a sudden Jakeem Grant has basically climbed back up that mountain and maybe has gotten himself that role here in 2023 that we all thought he was going to have in 2022 before the Achilles injury. I'm excited. He's a fun player. There's a lot you can do with Jakeem Grant. Look, he's not a world beater. The guy's not going to go out and catch 40 passes, but in a tiny reduced role, this guy has been a successful player in the NFL at times. And he's just a guy you get in space, get the ball in his hands, run some crossers with him, and simulate return-like things within the offense. Jakeem Grant can play. Jakeem Grant is a fun athlete in space. This is something the Browns can utilize. Granted, it's going to be small doses here. If he ever even gets to take wide receiver reps, ideally the Browns have those reps taken by 4 guys, maybe in front of him, possibly 5 guys in front of him. But it is a little special toy they could have in the holster if they need to break it out at any given time. I'm going to switch it up here. We're going to talk to Deshaun and his media availability today. And, I think Deshaun is growing, and we're going to get to all that here next. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns. I appreciate every one of you for being along for the ride. Look, my wife, my kids, they love to go to live music shows. But the problem is between 2 teenagers and my wife who works a ton, they can't always pinpoint out a day or a show that they want to go to. So if you're buying tickets to your favorite events, it shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Some of the things you can see within the Gametime app experience, the flash deals, last-minute tickets. It's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area. You get images of your seat views, the lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, etc., etc. Game Time is the place for last-minute ticket deals. Forget planning months in advance. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the day of the event. Get exclusive flash deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know what to expect when you arrive. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account. Use the code LOCKDOWNNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKDOWNNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Continuing on here, your latest Locked On Browns, your host, Jeff Lloyd. As always, I appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. Make sure you are part of the everyday crowd. It just continues to grow. The growth over here the last couple of days, the amount of new subscribers, the amount of downloads, all the interaction within the comments. I see you guys getting excited for September 10th against Cincinnati Bengals. And I ain't gonna lie, guys, I am very excited for September 10th against the Cincinnati Bengals. Deshaun Watson. Now, Deshaun Watson spoke today, and to his credit, and look, there's a lot of talk about Deshaun, and there's always going to be these talks about Deshaun. As we know, there are people that will never forgive his actions, and that is completely understandable. But for us, in the content business, the talk about the talk and the focus is about Deshaun Watson, the football player, and I think Deshaun spoke well. People talking about his rankings, obviously, the question of his play, the week down, he was down in Philadelphia against the Eagles. Now, Deshaun basically kind of agreed and basically, waved the flag of consent about people talking about his play. Deshaun basically said, I haven't played the game in 2 years and I've missed a ton of time. So, for him to be considered a top 5 quarterback probably isn't fair. That's for us to do. That's for me to do. That's for you fans to do. Deshaun Watson knows, that the time away, people forget the player you are. It's not a disrespect thing. It's, any professional sport, any sport, heck, man, it is a what have you done for me lately type of, mentality when you are viewed on the court, on the fields, wherever. So Deshaun has missed a ton of time, and he understands it, and he understands that maybe that's what's changing the way that folks view him as a player. Man, that's fair enough. But he's talked about Coach Stefanski, and he's talked about Alex Van Pelt, and the faith that these two guys have in him, and trying to put together a playbook that basically accentuates the positives of Deshaun Watson's game, and understanding where Deshaun should excel, and trying to stay him out of the situations where Deshaun might have issues. And again, there's the double down, there's the triple down. Amari Cooper last year, the growth of Donovan Peoples-Jones, the Elijah Moore deal, Cedric Tillman, David Bell is another weapon. They got him last year, and we're done talking about David Bell, guys. David Bell's making this roster, and it's in Sharpie. And, you bring in Aikens, a guy that, Deshaun has some familiarity with. Another athletic tight end that can make some plays, i.e. David Njoku. Making sure you kept this offensive line intact by bringing back Ethan Posick, by extending a Jack Conklin, and having maybe some blind faith in Jedrick Wills, and picking up the 5th-year option for big old number 71. But in the fairness to Deshaun saying this, the fan base, I mean, they're all going to say that's great. It's nice to say, but you better go play like a guy who's making $230 million, which is completely fair. It is 100%. You are making the money to be one of the top quarterbacks in the NFL. So it is great that you can, be, PC-ish, if you wanted to, label it as such, in this presser, and talking about it's fair for people, to judge your abilities due to the amount of time you missed. Certainly a long time away from the field. But within Deshaun, that fire still burns. That fire still exists to be one of the greatest. And the opportunity is there. And, to go against this elite schedule that the Browns are going to play in the first 6 weeks and 5 games. And it is no joke. The Tennessee Titans, even though I don't think they're going to be a very good football team, they got an incredible defensive line who can actually wreck your day in a heartbeat. The Cincinnati Bengals, whatever, my thoughts are, whether I think they're improved or not, This is still a team that went to a Super Bowl and went to an AFC Championship in 2 straight seasons. This team is legit. Do I think they, upgraded much on defense? Probably not. Do I think they upgraded on offense? Probably not. But the question is, did they essentially have to? Because, they're the king of the AFC North right now. So if you're the king, everybody else better upgrade up to your abilities. Baltimore Ravens, it's certainly going to be interesting playing that team. A whole new offense. Certainly the defense, vastly, vastly different. Not you're going to get the overall 100% pure, great secondary play that we've expected from this Baltimore Ravens team in the past. Pittsburgh Steelers, defense should be good. Defense should be really, really good. And it's going to be, a formidable test. And then, you get to, of course, the San Francisco 49ers, who are just a bunch of absolute bullies on the defensive side of the ball. They tackle well. They're physical. They get after the quarterback. They have a deep, deep rotation at defensive line. Talking about a player like Javon Kinlaw, who may possibly be on the bubble. This guy was a first-round pick a couple of years ago. And the 49ers are just so deep on the defensive line, there may not necessarily be room for a player of that ilk. But this season and these next few seasons, it all depends on one thing. It does. It depends on Deshaun. The Browns cannot have this guy not perform. And I'm not saying, look, he doesn't necessarily have to be top 5. He doesn't have to replicate the statistical output that he put out in 2020 when he was with the Texans. And his season was so good, he had players like J.J. Watt apologizing to him for other parts of the team not being good enough to essentially play on a field with Deshaun Watson. But look, he's got the tools. He's got all these weapons to throw the football to. You've got the best running back in the NFL behind you. So even on games that get a little squeaky, get a little tight, or even in the fourth quarter where you got to close it out, you've got that bull in the ring in Nick Chubb and that 5 yards per carry that you can lean on in some bad times. Deshaun needs to be accurate with his balls. Deshaun needs to be a player that plays within himself. There's no way Deshaun can get those 2 years back. You can't go out there and say, all right, well, I want to throw for 3 years worth of statistics in one season because I missed all that time. It's, unrealistic, and you got to play within yourself. You got to play within your abilities. You got to play within the system. And he's shown to, he's always been that type of player. He's just got to stay within himself, and the Browns truly need him to stay within himself. He's a special, special talent when he is on. There are people who still believe that talent is there. There are people who believe that player in 2020 will never be seen again. We'll know, and we'll know quickly. We'll know within the first 6 weeks of where Deshaun is at against basically the rest of his peers here in the NFL at the quarterback position. So with Deshaun, and I was impressed. I think Deshaun's Twitter persona, as opposed to Deshaun in front of a microphone. You certainly see the growth when he talks to the media. And I think you see the understanding that, some people maybe are probably out there rooting for him to lose. There's nothing he can do about that stuff. He can just go out there and be the best version of himself day in, day out. And for the Cleveland Browns, if he can be the best version of himself, that is all they could possibly ask for, which most likely leads the Browns to winning an AFC North title and possibly holding a playoff game in Cleveland, which just doesn't happen. As you guys know, we're going to switch it up here. We're going to talk the Browns' continued interest in the running back market. Your latest Locked On Browns. Jeff Lloyd, appreciate you all for sticking along for the ride. Jeff Lloyd, your latest Locked On Browns. Appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. Become part of the everyday crowd by making sure you subscribe to the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. Locked On Browns is always available. It is always free wherever you get your podcasts. With, the talk of Demetric Felton, the talk of John Kelly, the talk of Hassan Hall as guys that could possibly make this Browns Final 53. Corey Kinnan, lead editor over at Browns Wire, put out an article today, and I thought it was a pretty solid read. And this was put out before the Browns worked out another running back today, Keelan Hill. And he put 5 running backs that the Browns could possibly be targeting over the next, I guess from now to Tuesday, or maybe the time afterwards when you guys do get released. Top of the list, old friend, Ernest Johnson. I talk about the fact that the Browns could be in a weird situation if, God forbid, something happened to Nick Chubb, and all of a sudden you need to allocate maybe 15 carries to somebody. Anybody on this team right now, I don't have any faith in giving them 15 carries. Is Ernest Johnson a guy that I maybe have faith in giving 15 touches right now? Probably, yeah. And he's in a weird situation. He signed with the Jaguars. Then the Jaguars, who already had ETN, drafted Tank Bigsby. They got the former Baylor running back, former San Francisco 49ers running back, who seems to be playing in front of DEJ, which puts DEJ in a spot where he's essentially maybe the fourth running back on the Jacksonville Jaguars, which is crazy because Ernest Johnson on this team could possibly be most likely the number 2 running back. We haven't seen enough of Jerome Ford yet to prove otherwise. So there would be an opportunity. He's not making much money. I think the deal that he signed was like 1.2 and change with about, a little less than $900,000 guaranteed. If the Browns want him, this might be one where you actually have to go trade for him. Because if he is released, there's a bunch of teams that would be in front of the Browns, obviously, as far as the waiver wire is concerned. But if you want to go ahead and toss a 2024 day 3 pick, because you feel the importance of bringing Ernest Johnson back into the fold is that paramount for this team, I'm all for it. And the other thing is, Ernest comes in here, and yes, there's a lot of newness to this offense, but there's a lot of things that are still in place here that were in place while Ernest Johnson was a Cleveland Brown. So Ernest Johnson is a guy that you can pick up, you can bring in. And even if it was, say you brought him in August 27th, August 28th, or picked him up even sooner than that, this is a guy that would be ready to go September 10th, would cover you from Jerome Ford's side. And it would also cover you from the fact, God forbid, anything ever happened in Nick. So Ernest Johnson, certainly you want to bring it back. And look, Ernest's been on the show. I love Ernest. I've had the opportunity to talk to Ernest Johnson several times while he was with Cleveland. Got to talk with him when the contract news broke that he was going to Jacksonville. Ernest Johnson is a really, really good dude. And I wish him well. And if there's an opportunity for him to sneak his way back into Cleveland, hell yeah, let's do it, baby. Michael Carter from the Jets, between Breece Hall coming back, between the signing of Dalvin Cook, Michael, and they drafted, the Pitt running back. Michael Carter's an odd spot there. Michael Carter's probably a guy that can contribute more as a receiver. He has nice vision, I would say, between the tackles, but not a real big running back that you can count and say, hey, if we have to, we got to run the ball 20 times today. You're not going to give Michael Carter the ball 15 to 20 times out of the backfield. He's basically a weapon type of guy, similar to Demetric Felton. So certainly would be, interesting from, that standpoint. DJ Dallas, the Seattle Seahawk running back. DJ Dallas was a nice player coming out of Miami. Had a pretty nice, career down in Miami. The Seahawks draft a running back every year. It's just the way they do business. I don't blame them because it is good business practice. So it always seems that, you have nice competition in spring and summer, and you're either able to move a piece, for a future piece. But DJ Dallas looks like he could be an odd guy out from the Seattle Seahawks. So that certainly would be a name to monitor. Dare Ogunbowale, Houston Texans. Again, Houston is a team, changing things drastically here as new coaching staff. The whole team just completely revamping themselves. CJ Stroud going to lead the team. Will Anderson going to be a good player for the Houston Texans, guys. Keep your eyes on that. He's just a really, really fun player. But Ogunbowale, a name to consider as well. And then last one, Dwayne McBride, former UAB guy. So the Austin Watkinses of the world, the Alex Wrights of the world. He would be more like a guy you compare with Demetric Felton, if you understand what I'm saying. Doesn't bring much as a receiver, more of a power type of guy, between the tackles type of guy. Good vision, really, really tough to bring to the ground. But these are some guys, these are some names as the Browns continue pursuing and looking into this running back market that, these are guys that possibly could end up being here. Look, we'd love to hear next week that Jerome Ford's ready to go and he's going to start practicing. But, I think it's hard to have any belief in that right now. So the Browns continue basically to stoke the coals and look after running back after running back. Jordan Wilkins is here. Jordan Wilkins is probably going to get some extended playing time against the Chiefs. The Browns want to see just exactly where he is, how ready he is. There is, in my opinion, right now, I would say your number 2 running back against the Cincinnati Bengals is going to be Jordan Wilkins. The reason I believe this is we don't know if Jerome Ford is going to be ready, and it's going to be real tough if Jerome Ford just gets a couple of days of practice, and you're going to put him in this big week 1 divisional game against the defending AFC North champs. And here's a guy that's maybe taking, 40 practice reps since Greenbrier or whatever it was. So it's a real tough spot for the Browns to be in. For them, it's a very important position. It's a very integral position to what they do, as they do obviously are going to transition to a team that throws the ball more, which could make things easier for running backs. But that all being said, you got to make sure you got the guys to do it. And, Jordan Wilkins is getting a lot of first team work now. Browns are certainly being diligent about how much work they're putting on, Nick Chubb's plate right now. Again, it's about the long haul with Nick. It certainly is. It always is. As you're still at this time where you think you're going to be a team that's going to be very much highly in contention, not only for your division, but for your conference. So they have to be smart and understand that, the most important carries Nick Chubb's hopefully going to take are not going to be week 1. They're going to be week 17. Week 18, rather. They're going to be in the playoffs, possibly even in February in Las Vegas. This is the way a team should think right now in the season. So, the Browns obviously getting and staying within the running back market, which means obviously they'll have their eyes on cut list when it comes down on Tuesday. So, just things to keep your eyes out here for the next few days, including obviously the game on Saturday against the Chiefs, but the next 48 hours or afterward. Your news of the day, it looks like Grant Delpit got a stinger. Browns worked out running back Keelan Hill, formerly of Mississippi State, college teammate of Martin Emerson. Deshaun Watson took to the media, spoke about the understanding of folks that are doubting his play, talk about how much, Alex Van Pelt, of course, Kevin Stefanski, have faith in him to be the leader of this offense. And the Browns, if you're a running back with a pulse, the Browns definitely have their eyes glued to you and what you are currently doing. As always, I'm your host, Jeff Lloyd. I appreciate everybody who makes Locked On Browns their first listen every single day. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Make sure that you join the everyday crowd by subscribing to Locked On Browns on YouTube. Of course, the show is always available. It's always free wherever you get your podcasts. This has been your daily delivery of all things Dog Pound. LGB on ELOB. Let's go Browns.